Hi, everybody. My name is Franny Kendall, and I am a health and physical education specialist for Duval County Public Schools. I will be here in case you have any questions regarding any curriculum or what we're doing at DCPS. Heather Albritton is also with us. She is the Director of Health and Physical Education, and she will be able to help answer questions as well. I'm going to turn it over to our two fabulous presenters tonight, and they are from Drug Free Duval. We have Sally Finn with us, who, if I can get my stuff to pop up here. Sally is the Executive Director of Drug Free Duval. And then we also have Hannah Shaper, who is the Director of Education and Training with Drug Free Duval. So if you all have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box, and we will be monitoring that with any questions you may have. And I'm going to turn it over to two of them. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for inviting us. We are just thrilled to be a part of the Parent Academy. Certainly have done this in the past, and it's wonderful to be invited again. Tonight, we're going to talk about the silent killer. We're going to talk about real lives lost to fentanyl poisoning. And this all sounds sort of overwhelming and scary. And yeah, it is. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It really is. But I believe that you guys will leave this evening with a greater understanding of what's going on, not only nationally, regionally, but right here in Duval County, and be equipped to be able to have conversations with our youth, to be able to look for things on their phones. Hannah will be addressing that in just a little bit. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. I am Sally Finn, the Executive Director for Drug Free Duval. We've been around since 2008, and we are excited to engage with you guys tonight. Next. All right, so prevention. I would be very remiss if we did not talk about prevention. We are a substance abuse prevention coalition. And basically, we are how we're driven is because we want to see freedom from substance abuse for all residents in Duval County. That's a lofty vision, but we believe that one person at a time, one community at a time, that we can do that. And how do we do that? We work towards population level change. We want to make sure that the culture is what's being changed in our community, because that's how we see real change take place. So how do we do that? Well, we enlist environmental strategies. Boy, a lot of big words this evening, right? But really, when you break down what environmental strategies are, that it's all about providing information, which is what we're doing tonight. We enhance skills through workshops and trainings. Well, guess what? We're doing that tonight too. We support healthy activities. We increase access and reduce barriers to things. We impact consequence by using incentives, but also disincentives. We help change physical design. And then really important, we develop and modify policies. We're already always looking at different policies and laws and seeing how related to drugs and alcohol, how does that affect the people in our community? So I want to talk a little bit about risk and protective factors, which is just a fancy way of saying that, really we want to expand what protects, and we want to minimize or even extinguish what harms. And so that's where we talk about risk and protective factors. And if you look at this slide and you look to the right box, you can see that we start with the individual, you and I, or our youth, or the kids in our family. We look at that, we go out just one circle and we start looking at relationships. Who do we engage with on a regular basis? In the classroom, it's our teachers or our friends. In our workplace, it's our coworkers. And then the community, that is reaching out just that much further. Maybe it's the folks we go to church with, or that we play tennis with, or go to a movie with, or our Bible studies. And then society in general, that's sort of the macro view. And really, Drug Free Duval, or prevention coalitions in general, we really focus on the relationships and the community. Certainly, we do some things with individuals, but mostly it's with the relationships and the community. And I will tell you at this point that we do have resources, so that if we did need to work with the individual and we were not equipped, we certainly have resources, and we can share more about that later. So our learning objectives for this evening, and at the end of the day, we're going to be equipping you with some life-saving information. We're going to talk about opioids. We hear them in the news all the time. They were even in the State of the Union address the other night with President Biden. What they are, how they work, and then the role of fentanyl, another word that did not used to be in our regular vocabulary that is now. We're going to talk about opioid overdose, why it happens, what it looks like, and then the role of fentanyl. And then finally, Hannah is going to take us home with the silent killer and the fentanyl poisoning. We'll have a couple of videos that will really just kind of take us home with why all of this conversation is so important and why it is important to be able to have the knowledge and the education to be able to share with our young people in our lives. So what are opioids or opiates? So I think it's really important here to remember that there are prescribed medications that are actually prescribed to manage and to moderate to severe pain. They are derived from the opium, and they're called opiates, or synthetic made in an approved lab. And I just want you to focus right there on approved lab, and that would be the opioids. Generic names that you may have heard, hydrocodone. I know when I broke my arm and had surgery, they sent me home with a prescription for hydrocodone. Oxycodone, morphine, codeine, and fentanyl. Yes, fentanyl is absolutely a drug that is prescribed by doctors for those folks who are maybe having severe pain or coming out of surgery. I have a granddaughter with heart issues. She's had 3 open heart surgeries already. Every time she comes out of that surgery, she has a IV with fentanyl and morphine in it. So there are legitimate uses for fentanyl. Some of the brands you may have heard of are Vicodin, Percocet, Opana, Duragesic, and Cadian. Wow, I don't think I've even said that word before, Cadian. And I think it's important to understand that we give these medications in pill form, IV form, injection, or sometimes a patch, like a fentanyl patch. So let's talk about the illicit side of opioids. These are meds with the same side effects as the prescribed medications, synthetically made in non-approved labs or on the street. Remember, we talked about the prescribed meds are made in approved labs. These are non-approved labs or sometimes on the street. And those can include opium, heroin, fentanyl, yes, fentanyl that is illicit, and the fentanyl analogs, such as norfentanyl or carfentanil, which you may have heard is often called the elephant tranquilizer. Methods of using these drugs include ingesting, injecting, snorting, shooting, and smoking. So a variety of ways that these illicit medications can be and are used at the street level. So how do opioids work to reduce pain? Well, they travel through the blood and they attach to opioid receptors that are in your brain. I remember when we first started talking about this, I had no idea that we have opioid receptors in our brain. Everybody does. And so when we introduce an opioid into our system, it travels through the blood system and attaches to the opioid receptors. Those cells release signals that muffle the perception of pain. The pain is there, but it's been muffled because of the opioid that's been introduced. But also, and this is really important, the cells also release signals that increase feelings of pleasure. So fentanyl. It's very potent and it is used clinically as part of anesthesia, as I mentioned earlier, after surgery, and to control breakthrough pain. It has rapid onset of pain relief. It only lasts a little while, and it has less histamine reaction. And a synthetic opioid is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid made in a lab, and it is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. So it's incredibly potent. So in an overdose situation, why it happens and what it looks like and what is fentanyl's role in an overdose. So one of my favorite slides, we use this actually in a multiple trainings that we offer at Drug Free Duval, but this is your brain and these are the receptors in your brain. And if you kind of cup your hand, and Hannah's going to do it too, this is kind of the receptor in your brain. The opioid is introduced into your system, and one opioid goes and sits on one receptor. the more receptors that are filled up, the more likely that your brain is going to be able to, is going to stop telling your lungs to breathe, and then you're going to go into an overdose state. So that's kind of how that happens. So a person may have 1, 2, or more of these signs. These are signs of an opioid overdose. And I want you guys to know that you're not going to see all of this. You might see 1 or 2 of them. You might just see 1. But that we should take that seriously enough that it could be an opioid overdose. Pinpoint pupils. I will tell you guys, we didn't used to have this as one of the on our list of the signs, but everything we read now, pinpoint pupils are definitely a part of it. Lack of consciousness and possibly unresponsive. They might be awake, but they're not able to talk. Okay, so this is a lot to take in if you came across somebody. I will tell you, I was driving through 5 Points the other day, and there was a gentleman sitting on a park bench. He was kind of laid out, like his legs were sticking out way in front of him, and he was slumped back, and I was just kind of watching him. I had my Narcan, which is the opioid reversal drug, in the back of my car, in my backpack, and I was just waiting. Oh my gosh, is this going to be a time that I'm going to go over? But one of his buddies kicked his foot and he woke up. So I was like, okay, don't have to use it. But I was very aware. Just because I know the signs now, I kind of looked at that person a little bit differently than if he was just sleeping on the park bench, right? Their pulse may be slow, erratic, or not present at all. Remember, we talked about the lack of oxygenation, that perhaps this person may not be breathing. So you might see bluish or purple skin tones or nail tones, or grayish ashen skin and nail tones, depending on their complexion. You might hear a choking or gurgling sound, sometimes called the death rattle. There may be vomiting, and their body may be very limp, like I kind of thought that guy was on the bench. But in this picture, I don't know if you guys have seen this. This was on the news. But because of the potency of fentanyl, these 2 people use fentanyl in their car. Unfortunately, their small child is in the back seat, and you can see the outcome here was not a good one. So very, very, very sad. So the role of fentanyl in an overdose, and I just want to kind of, we've talked a lot about fentanyl in the news lately, but how did we get to where we are today? And so it's kind of important to know the history. So if you look at wave 1, was in the 1990s, where we saw a dramatic increase in overdose deaths involving prescribed opioids. You guys might have seen some of the series on TV, Dope Sick. There's been several of them, really talking about how the manufacturing and the pharmaceutical reps that would go to doctors, especially doctors who were prescribing a lot already, they would just really encourage them. Yes, this medication is amazing. Less than 1% of your patients will become addicted to this, which we know is not true. But all of that happened. And so we saw a huge increase in prescribed opioids. And then we here in Jacksonville, we had the pill mills. We had lines of people waiting to get their opioids. We have people coming from other states to the state of Florida because we had lots of pill mills. And so we had to do something about that. So we closed a lot of the pill mills. We started to look at the docs that were prescribing a lot of opioids, and we kind of shut that down. And but now we've got a whole bunch of people who are addicted to opioids, and they can't get their opioids anymore. So wave 2 began in 2010, with a rapid increase in overdose deaths involving heroin. We call this the push down pop-up theory, because basically at the end of the day, we pushed down on the prescribed opioids. We started to do what we thought was really good. We started to get rid of the access to these opioids. But unfortunately, we've got people who are addicted, and so they are going to go to the street, and that's when we started to see the increase in heroin deaths. And then wave 3 began in 2013, where we started to see a significant increase in overdose deaths involving the synthetic opioids, particularly the illicitly manufactured fentanyl. And that's kind of where we are today. And Hannah's going to expound on this, but today we often see fentanyl in almost any drug, and she will talk more about that. But I just wanted to make sure you guys had a background about, how we got to where we are and what an opioid is. At this point, if you have any questions about some of the slides that I presented, I'd be happy to take them, or we can move right on with Hannah.
So I want you guys to remember that fentanyl, as Sally said, is 80 to 100 times more stronger than morphine when manufactured by a regulated, approved lab and distributed by a legitimate pharmacy. So we're looking at fentanyl and opioid overdose in 2022 right now, and it is being labeled the silent killer, but it's also being labeled as fentanyl poisoning instead of an overdose. And street fentanyl is the Wild West, okay? Per the DEA, with amounts as small as the point of a pencil being deadly. And the overdose epidemic is definitely driven by illicit fentanyl, fentanyl analogs, methamphetamine, and cocaine, often in combination and adulterated forms, and that's per the AMA. So fentanyl has changed the game big time. And I can even tell you that we work a lot with youth. And we work with a particular group who, one of the girls in there, her brother is in recovery and he was addicted to opioids. And to support using, he started selling. And he said for the longest time, there was a lot of respect when it came with drug dealers of not trying to adulterate it or put too much into it. But he said with fentanyl, that is no longer the case, that they will put anything in it now. And this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So it really has changed the game when it comes to our youth thinking something is safe, because it's really no longer is. It could mean life or death. So just looking at how the DEA said that a amount as small as the point of a pencil is deadly, we want you guys just to kind of look at it from this amazing marketing. It's actually, it's CDC, but they contracted with a local marketing agency right here in Jacksonville, and it's amazing.
The drug landscape has changed. Illegal fentanyl has made its way into the drug supply, and it's a danger you might not see coming. A synthetic opioid up to 50 times stronger than heroin, up to 100 times stronger than morphine. It only takes the tiniest amount to cause a fatal overdose. A fraction of a raindrop, or 3 grains of salt. Your drugs don't come with an ingredients list. Although fentanyl is being mixed into almost every kind of drug, you wouldn't be able to see it, or smell it, or taste it. Fentanyl is one of the most common drugs involved in overdose deaths. Know the dangers. Learn the facts about fentanyl and ways to protect yourself at cdc.gov/stop-overdose.
So 3 grains of salt. You can't smell it, you can't see it, you can't taste it. And we have seen time and time again when someone is revived with Narcan from an overdose, they will literally say, I don't take opioids. I don't take opioids. I did this or something. But the fact that there was fentanyl in it is the reason that they overdosed. So it's just really important to be talking about our kids, speak to our kids, especially because now we're seeing a lot of illicitly manufactured pills has changed the game tremendously when it comes to the Xanax, Adderall, other opioids like Percocet or whatnot. It is just Vyvanse. Yeah, it's just very dangerous that they think they're getting from a legitimate pharmacy, but they're not. So the DEA reveals that criminal drug networks are flooding the US with deadly fentanyl. Fentanyl is extremely cheap. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but the reason drug dealers are putting it in so much stuff is because it's so cheap that they can buy large quantities of it and then put it in, so they're not having to put the real stuff in or whatever else. The DEA has also revealed that 4 out of every 10 pills with fentanyl contains a potentially lethal dose. And this has changed. So the DEA has released this new marketing or awareness campaign called One Pill Can Kill. And we believe it. But even 4 months ago, they were saying 4 out of 10 pills had fentanyl in it, one of those 4 had a deadly amount of fentanyl. Well, this has changed. It is now 4 out of every 10 pills has a deadly amount of fentanyl in the pill. And these counterfeit pills are almost indistinguishable from real pharmacies, like pharmaceutical pills. Even pharmacists will look at them. They'll look at like a counterfeit pill, and then they'll look at a real pharmacy pill, and they're not even able to distinguish the difference. A person who works with those every single day. So fentanyl poisoning exacts a lethal toll, right? I just want you guys to take a minute to kind of look at some of these headlines. 100 bags of fentanyl found in a bedroom of a 13-year-old boy who died from an overdose. This was recent. This was in January of 2022. Not only did they find 100, and when they say 100 bags of fentanyl, it was the illicitly pressed, the counterfeit pills that had fentanyl in them. But they also found, was it 40 bags or 40
bags at school?
They found 40 bags at the kids' school with pills with fentanyl, and I'm pretty sure 2 other people at the school. I don't think they didn't die, but they overdosed from these counterfeit pills with fentanyl. A teen was charged with murder after a 12-year-old San Jose girl dies of a fentanyl overdose. So not only did a 12-year-old die, but our teens, they're going to jail. They're getting incarcerated from this. A wake-up call. Atlantic Beach mother reflects on the horror that this drug had on her family because she lost her son in 2020.
Yes.
And she's a local woman here that works really closely with Drug Free Duval, who her son struggled with addiction, but he was not opioid seeking. And that's what I think is so important when talking to our youth. A lot of the times the kids are not seeking opioids, which is why fentanyl poisoning has really became a term that is often used. There was I think a CBS or NBC news segment where they interviewed 3 kids who someone close to them, whether it was a family member or a friend, had passed away from fentanyl. And one of the boys' brother had passed away, and he gave the analogy of Zen, like his brother he didn't overdose. Technically, he overdosed because he took a substance and overdosed on it, but he wasn't seeking that euphoria. He wasn't seeking an opioid. And it's almost like if you're seeking water to drink and there's arsenic in the water, right? So there was fentanyl in this substance that he happened to take, but he wasn't opioid seeking. And the fentanyl we're seeing is not the lab fentanyl. It's not the approved lab fentanyls. It may be the non-approved or the fentanyl that maybe is made in your bathtub, right? So the illicitly manufactured fentanyl, which is also called IMF, the CDC has termed that, is now being mixed with cocaine, methamphetamines, and other things, then pressed into pills that look like prescription drugs. So a kid may be searching for an Adderall, think he gets an Adderall, but really it's methamphetamine and fentanyl, right? It's not even remotely close to Adderall. They're able to press it with the number that makes it look like the Adderall. And this is new. We have not seen this, but in its liquid form, IMF can be found in nasal sprays, eye drops, dropped onto paper, or added to small candies. So I don't even think even the liquid form of this illicitly made fentanyl is new to what we're seeing. And that's really scary, especially because we're seeing a rise in hallucinogens, such as like LSD, which is often on a piece of paper. So now they can put fentanyl, it's really changing the game of everything. And some street names that the CDC lists and the DEA lists that is often referred to with illicit fentanyl is Apache, Dance Fever, Friend, Goodfellas, Jackpot, Murder 8, and Tango Cash. Well, the DEA also started saying, how are the kids getting this medication, right? How are they getting these counterfeit pills? And the truth is from social media, from Instagram, from Facebook. But the number one, I feel like the one that we see all the time is Snapchat. I don't have a Snapchat, so I'm not very familiar with I had it in college, but I think it's changed so much since I was in college. So I haven't had one in probably 8, 9+ years. But I feel like every story we see, they say that they were on Snapchat, they found it, and that's how they got it. And so what the DEA set out to do was they started looking at emojis, and they're like, how can we decode these emojis to really let people know what people are trying to say, and for parents to really step into that area with their kids. And if they hear their kids say something, or they see something on their phone, they have the knowledge to say, man, do I need to step into this? Do we need to have a talk? What does this look like? So the emoji drug decoded is, you can look at it right here. Fake prescription drugs. We have the Percocet and oxycodone can often be like the little pill emoji. The circle, the P for Percocet, or a banana. A Xanax could be the pill. The like chocolate bar or the bus. The Adderall can be the pill or the A, or like a Subway thing. I don't even know how they come up with these. Dealer signals can be like the money signed in the face. A plug can be when you say like, that's my plug, like that's my drug dealer. High potency. So they could have like a P for Percocet, and then a bomb saying like, this is some strong Percocet that probably has fentanyl in it, right? Universal is like the poor Canadian, like maple leaf makes me really sad. A large batch is a cookie. And then you have the other drugs that you can see, such as meth, heroin, cocaine, MDMA, and Molly, mushrooms, cough syrup, marijuana. These are all just different emojis that we can really be on the lookout. And I will say Drug Free Duval has also started a campaign that's called Word of the Week, or Emoji of the Week. We do a lot of emojis where every week we pick an emoji and we highlight it. And we're just saying, hey, parents, like, step into this realm. If you hear your kid saying something, like, don't just sit there and not say anything to them. Talk to them. Let them know about fentanyl and these counterfeit pills. Your friend may have Adderall, and you say, hey, can I have one of yours, thinking it's a pharmaceutical from a pharmacy Adderall, but they happen to get it from Snapchat and they thought they were getting it from a Canadian pharmacy. And that is not the case whatsoever. So I just want us to watch this video about fentanyl poisoning, because I think it'll really hit home to see what our kids now are struggling with and what they are interacting with and living with.
Opioids and social media. It's a nationwide concern that has gone largely unnoticed until recently. And it's now shaken the Whitney High School community in Rockland. And unless changes are made, it's just a matter of time before it happens again.
You ready? Me too.
For years, the Didier family was treated to beautiful music like this. But since the sudden and shocking death of their beloved Zachary, the piano has fallen silent. 17-year-old Zachary Didier was a straight-A student with what seemed to be a limitless future. A standout athlete in soccer and track, on his way to becoming an Eagle Scout. The lead actor in the school play, and a talented self-taught musician.
Zach was just a beautiful soul. He loved life, he loved people, he loved his family.
The Whitney High School senior was set to graduate in June with honors and had his sights on Stanford or UCLA.
He loved winning. He loved setting high goals and accomplishing it. It was something that I think he even was wondering, can I do or what can I not do?
Today, his parents, Chris and Laura, are left only with their dreams of what Zach could have become and their memories of the amazing 17 years they had with him.
We struggled with knowing to do this or not because we want Zach to be remembered for how he lived. He lived the most incredible life. But we have to talk about how he died because it's information we all have to know.
On December 27th, during winter break, Chris found Zach at his desk with his head resting on his arm. He wasn't breathing, and CPR had no effect.
I was utterly confused and obviously in a fog and traumatized. I'm a
What was first an inexplicable tragedy.
It was like, how does this happen? What happened? He just fell asleep.
Has since become a cautionary tale. Zach was a victim of fentanyl poisoning.
Unfortunately, we've now come to know other parents who have suffered this tragic type of loss with fentanyl poisoning, and it's heartbreaking how many of us there are.
Laura and Chris didn't know it, but on a couple of occasions, Zach had experimented with prescription drugs, the same medications millions of people use for pain management every day. Zach thought he was buying Percocet, but what he got instead was a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl, a powerful prescription painkiller that is 50 times stronger than morphine.
It's a fake pill. It doesn't contain anything that they think it does. Zach did not want to buy fentanyl. But that's what happened.
Days later, and still without all the answers, Chris and Laura buried their youngest child at St. Mary's Cemetery in Sacramento.
If you're a parent, I'm sure you can imagine it. I'm sure he's worried about it. We pray that you'll never have to experience it.
The Didier family is haunted not only by the fake pills, but by the way Zach got them. He didn't slip down a dark and seedy alley. He just opened Snapchat, the same phone app your kids probably have, the one with all those silly camera filters. Did you have any idea that it could be as easy as picking up your phone, clicking on an app?
No idea at all. We had zero idea that could happen.
Never heard of that before.
We'd never heard of that risk. We'd never heard that drug dealers are using these social media platforms.
Laura and Chris say they struggled with whether to share Zach's story because of the stigma surrounding drugs. Although Zach had no history of addiction, they were worried that the truth might tarnish people's memory of him.
In our inner circle of people that we were sharing what we suspected had happened, we couldn't believe how everybody's reactions were. I had no idea of this, Laura. I had no idea of this. And so then we realized, okay, we can't not share what we know.
This is an important message to get out. That this is a big game changer, and what may have been okay or relatively safe in the 70s and 80s or even the 90s is a very different environment right now.
You can have a child that is curious and tries something one time and they're gone. There's no learning your lesson. There's no slippery slope. It's deadly. And there's the accessibility is mind blowing.
There's no doubt Chris and Laura are proud of their boy and all he accomplished, the places he went, the friends he made. And though we'll never know what Zach could have become, we know the legacy his parents are committed to leaving.
It hurts so bad. And if we can spare one family this pain.
To make sure no other child is lost the same way.
And we need to talk about this. We need to talk about what's happening. We can't protect Zach now. But hopefully we can protect your kids, or we can protect other kids who don't know. We did not know.
It's overwhelming how many, if you go onto YouTube and you type in fentanyl poisoning, how many news stories you see that are exactly that. And as Zach's mom said, it's I know they mentioned that he had dabbled with prescription pills prior, but as his mom said, it's the one time that a kid makes a decision to maybe try something at a party or whatever it's at, like that could be that one time, which is why it's so important for us to be telling our kids that this is a real danger. We do have local resources. Overdose Data to Action is a collaborative between the CDC and the Duval Department of Health. It is an amazing collaborative, and it includes free treatment locator, info for patients and families, info for doctors and clinicians, data and research, and then partners with alternative therapies, treatment, and peer support. But then there's also Drug Free Duval. We have a free Narcan administration training and signs of opioid overdose, which you guys learned today, that come with a free Narcan kit. And Narcan is the opioid reversal drug. So if someone is overdosing with an opioid, you can administer that and it will reverse that. Free safe storage training and disposal trainings. I know Sally mentions that we work on like environmental strategies and like cultural mind shifts, where I can attest to, I did not grow up with a healthy respect when it comes to prescription medication. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, as in like, I have a brother. So if my brother got sick, I got sick, and my mom would maybe not want to go to the doctor or something. So my brother would have some leftover medication and say, oh, you've got strep, Hannah, just take the rest of this and you'll be okay. And my mom loves me and I love my mom more than anything, but I didn't develop a perception of harm when it comes to prescription medication and not using someone else's prescription medication, because I can promise you if that was developed within individuals, they hopefully wouldn't go seeking those prescription medications, right? Because we know that we don't take those. Those are for only if your name's on it. And so that safe storage and safe disposal training it's really upbeat. It's really amazing. And it comes with doTERRA disposal bags, which you can dispose of prescription medication into it. And it's really great. And then we have our social media campaigns, our word of the week, as I mentioned, Duval Opioid Project. And these are all at Drug Free Duval, our IG, our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn. But we also understand that sometimes kids don't want to listen to their parents, right? Sometimes it's hard to speak into your kids because they have that like invincibility and you don't really know what's going on, which is why Drug Free Duval is extremely excited to announce that we have been working with a group of kids from 7 different schools here in Duval County, and they approached us and they are all about raising awareness for better health. And they want to talk about mental health. They want to talk about substance use and abuse. They want to talk about eating disorders, everything. And so we've been working with them for the past year. And this year they have decided to do the inaugural Duval CoLab Summit 2022. And it's what the theme of it, or the focus, is being awake to the silent killer, which is fentanyl, and the one pill can kill. And they chose that themselves. They all brought up a different topic and they decided that one was the most important. It is on Sunday, May 15th, 2022 from 1 to 4. They are leading it. They are talking. They've selected the panel. They've selected the breakout rooms. We have space for about 150 individuals, kids, parents. We'd love for you to be there, but this is really all about the kids here in Duval County. So if you are interested in any of your children attending this, please email me at hannah@dfdjax.org, because it's kids talking to kids, and that is the most impactful way, in my opinion. So if you'd like any information, please email me. I can get that to you, to whoever. And then we just want to leave with you. Transformation in the world happens when people heal and start investing in other people. And this is what we need to invest in. We need to invest in talking about the silent killer, talking about one pill can kill, and just loving our children and supporting them and making those healthy activities or healthy choices. So thank you guys. If you guys want any more information, you can email Susan at dfdjax.org, Hannah at dfdjax.org, or Sally at dfdjax.org. It's very simple. Just put one of our names there. But other than that, that's all from me. If you guys have any questions or anything, please let me know.
And I will say really quickly with the Youth Collab, we, as Hannah said, we are so excited to have this up and going. And this is a combination of public school youth and private school youth. And so it's a great place to start, you know, for other kids to, you know, come in and just listen in a pretty safe place. So we're very, very excited and can't wait to report some of the outcomes from this summit. Well, thank you guys again for this amazing opportunity. If anybody on the call or the training is interested in learning more about Drug-Free Duval, getting involved, just reach out to us. We have all kinds of amazing trainings and other opportunities. And we've had the pleasure of being a part of DCPS activities for many, many, many years. And the Parent Academy is a wonderful addition and resource for parents. And we just thank you for thinking of us and sending us the invite.